Good afternoon. This is your captain speaking with just a little flight information. We're flying at an altitude of 37,000 feet and our airspeed is 400 miles an hour. Couple little facts here. I'm packing a Colt King Cobra. That's a .357 caliber firearm with a black rubber grip and a 6-inch barrel, capable of piercing body armor at a distance of up to 27 feet. And I can put a hole in human bone and flesh the size of the Grand Canyon, which, by the way, is coming up on the left-hand side of the plane. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the flight.
No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Should I tell you? Should I tell you? Oh, you're Boy Scout, but you know life. You know life. You know I'm totally off script right now.
Hello, this is News Dive, and I'm your host, Shane. It is Friday, July 28th, 2023, and let's dive into the headlines. Donald Trump on Thursday was hit with additional federal charges in connection with his alleged mishandling of classified documents, while a third person, a worker at the former president and 2024 Republican candidate's Mar-a-Lago resort, was newly indicted in this case. According to the new indictment, Trump and his co-conspirators asked another Mar-a-Lago worker to delete security camera footage at the resort in order to prevent it from being provided to a federal grand jury. A 14-year-old Palestinian boy was shot dead by Israeli occupation forces during a Thursday morning raid in the West Bank city of Kalkulia. The Palestinian Health Ministry said Faraz Abu Smira, the 37th child killed by Israeli forces this year, was shot in the head as occupation troops stormed the area. Witnesses said Palestinian youths resisted the Israeli invaders by throwing stones, and that the troops returned fire with live rounds, so-called less lethal projectiles, including rubber-coated steel bullets, stun grenades, and tear gas. The U.S. Senate passed its version of the National Defense Authorization Act in an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote on Thursday after rejecting Senator Bernie Sanders' push for a 10% cut to military spending. Just 11 senators, including Sanders, voted against the final passage of the sprawling NDAA, which would authorize a record $886 billion in military spending for the coming fiscal year, including over $844 billion for the Pentagon and roughly $32 billion for the Energy Department's nuclear weapons program. U.S. forces in Niger are restricting their movement and assessing the situation following a military coup that overthrew President Mohamed Bazoum. A group of Nigerian soldiers appeared on TV Wednesday saying they ousted the democratically elected leader. President Joe Biden addressed the public on Thursday as he announced new measures to address the record-breaking heat that spread across the country from the Southwest to the Midwest and Northeast, placing more than half the U.S. population under heat advisories. Biden did not utter the words fossil fuels, oil, or gas throughout his remarks, despite the fact that World Weather Attribution reported this week that the extreme heat seen in the US and other countries would have been virtually impossible without the climate crisis and continued fossil fuel extraction. And that will conclude today's headlines. Brigadier General Moussa Salaou Barmou, the chief of Niger's Special Operation Forces and one of the leaders of the unfolding coup in Niger, was trained by the U.S. military, The Intercept has confirmed. U.S.-trained military officers have taken part in 11 coups in West Africa since 2008. We have had a long relationship with the United States, Barmou said in 2021. Being able to work together in this capacity is very good for Niger. Just last month, Barmou met with Lieutenant General Jonathan Braga, the head of U.S. Army Special Operations Command, at Air Base 201, a drone base in the Nigerian city of Agadez. On Wednesday, Barmou, who trained at Fort Bennington, Georgia, and the National Defense University in Washington, joined a junta that ousted Niger's democratically elected president. according to the Nigerian sources and a U.S. government official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Barmou did not return phone calls and text messages from The Intercept. A U.S. official tracking the coup who spoke on the condition of anonymity confirmed Barmou's relationship with the U.S. military and said he was probably not alone. "I'm sure we will find out that others have been partners, have been involved with the U.S. engagements," he said of other members of the junta, noting that the U.S. government agencies were looking into the matter. The mutiny is the latest in a long line of military uprisings in West Africa, many of them led by U.S.-trained officers. U.S.-trained officers have been involved in at least 6 coups in neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali since 2012. In total, America's mentees have conducted at least 10 coups in West Africa since 2008. Over the last decade, Niger and its neighbors in the West African Sahel have been plagued by armed groups that have taken the notion of the outlaw motorcycle gang to its most lethal apogee. Under the black banners of jihadist militancy, men on motos, 2 to a bike, have terrorized villages across the borderlands where Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger meet. In 2002, long before motorcycle attacks became commonplace in the tri-border region, the U.S. began providing Niger with counterterrorism assistance. Washington flooded the country with military equipment, from armored vehicles to surveillance aircraft. Since 2012, U.S. taxpayers have spent more than $500 million there, making it one of the largest security assistance programs in sub-Saharan Africa. U.S. troops train, advise, and assist their Nigerian counterparts and have fought and even died there in an Islamic State ambush near the village of Tongo Tongo in 2017. Over the last decade, the number of U.S. military personnel deployed to Niger has jumped from just 100 to 1,016. Niger has also seen a proliferation of U.S. outposts. Niger hosts one of the largest and most expensive drone bases run by the U.S. military, built in the northern city of Agadez for $110 million, and maintained at a cost of $20 to $30 million each year. Airbase 201 is a surveillance hub and the linchpin of an archipelago of U.S. outposts in West Africa. Home to Space Force personnel, a joint special operations air detachment, and a fleet of drones, including armed MQ-9 Reapers. The base is an exemplifier of failed U.S. military efforts in Niger and the wider region. Earlier this year, The Intercept reported that bandits conducted a daylight armed robbery of base contractors and drove off with roughly 24 million West African CFA francs, about $40,000. Throughout all of Africa, the State Department counted just 9 terrorist attacks in 2002 and 2003, the first years of U.S. counterterrorism assistance to Niger. Last year, the number of violent events in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Western Niger alone reached 2,737, according to a report by the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, a Defense Department research institution. This represents a jump of more than 30,000% since the U.S. began its counterterrorism efforts. Between 2002 and 2003, terrorists caused 23 casualties in Africa. In 2022, militant attacks in just those 3 Sahelian nations killed almost 7,900 people. The Sahel now accounts for 40% of all violent activity by militant Islamic groups in Africa, more than any other region on the continent, according to the Pentagon's Africa Center. In a meeting with Niger's President Bazoum earlier this year, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken decried the growing influence of the Russia-linked Wagner Group, a mercenary army led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, a former hot dog vendor turned warlord. Where Wagner has been present, bad things have inevitably followed, Blinken said, noting that the group's presence is associated with overall worsening security. The U.S. was a better option, he said, and needed to prove that we can actually deliver results. But the US already has a 2-decade record of counterterrorism engagement in the region. Bad things and overall worsening security have been the hallmarks of those years. Wagner has only been active in the region since late 2021. The Pentagon says that the US partnership with Niger's army, especially its commandos, is key to countering militants. Defense Department agencies partner with the Nigerian army and special operators to fight violent extremism throughout Northwest Africa. But experts say the overwhelming focus on counterterrorism is part of the problem. The major issues fueling conflict in Niger and the Sahel are not military in nature. They stem from people's frustration with poverty, the legacy of colonialism, elite corruption, and political and ethnic tensions and injustices. Yet, rather than address these issues, the US government has prioritized sending weapons and funding and training the region's militaries to wage their own wars on terror, said Stephanie Saval, co-director of the Cost of War Project at Brown University, an expert on US military efforts in Western Africa. One of the hugely negative consequences has been to empower the region's security forces at the expense of other government institutions. And this is surely one factor in the slate of coups we've been seeing in Niger, Burkina Faso, and elsewhere in recent years. And that will conclude today's episode. Please like and follow the show, give the show 5 stars, leave a good review, and share the show around. Follow the show on social media. You can find links in the description below, and I will talk to you next time. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.